The door slammed so hard the picture frame fell off the wall. Glass shattered across the kitchen floor, and I stood there, frozen, holding our 3-month-old son against my chest. His tiny fists clutched my shirt. I could still hear Marcus's footsteps echoing down the stairwell of our apartment building, each step taking away the life I thought we'd built together. "Don't call me," he'd said, not even turning around. "Don't text. Don't show up at my mother's house. We're done." That word hung in the air like smoke after a fire. 5 years of my life, gone in 20 seconds. I looked down at baby Elijah. His eyes were closed, his breathing soft and steady against my collarbone. He didn't know his father had just walked out on us. He didn't know we had exactly $342 in our checking account. He didn't know the rent was due in 8 days, or that the electricity bill was already late, or that I'd been eating 1 meal a day for 2 weeks so we could afford his formula. He was just peaceful, trusting, perfect, and I was falling apart. My hands were shaking as I carried him to the bedroom. The bedroom that still smelled like Marcus's cologne. The bedroom where we talked about names and painted the walls soft blue together. Where he'd promised me forever. I laid Elijah in his crib and backed away slowly, making sure he wouldn't wake up. Then I walked to the bathroom, closed the door, slid down to the floor, and finally let myself break. The sobs came hard and silent. I pressed my fist against my mouth to keep from making noise. I couldn't let the neighbors hear. I couldn't let anyone know how completely I'd been destroyed. Because if I admitted it out loud, if I let the words form, then it would be real. Marcus left me. Marcus left us. The man who'd gotten down on one knee in front of my entire family. The man who'd held my hand through 19 hours of labor. The man who'd cried when he first held our son. That man had just walked out without looking back. I pulled myself up to the sink and splashed cold water on my face. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My eyes were swollen and red. My hair was in a messy bun I'd thrown together 3 days ago. I'd lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. I looked like a ghost. My phone buzzed on the counter. For one desperate second, I thought maybe it was him. Maybe he'd realized what he'd done. Maybe he was downstairs, ready to apologize, ready to come back. It was my mother. "Did you pay your phone bill? Call me when you can." I couldn't call her. Not yet. Because if I heard her voice, I'd have to tell her. I'd have to say the words. Marcus left. And my mother, who'd warned me about him from the beginning, who'd said he wasn't ready to be a father, who'd told me to finish school first. She'd be right. And I couldn't handle being wrong right now. I walked back to the living room. The broken picture frame was still on the floor. It was from our wedding day. We'd gotten married at City Hall on a Tuesday afternoon because we couldn't afford anything bigger. I'd worn a white dress from Target. He'd worn the suit he'd borrowed from his brother. We'd been so happy. Or maybe I just convinced myself we were happy. I picked up the frame carefully, avoiding the sharp edges. In the photo, we were laughing. My hand was on his chest. His arm was around my waist. We looked like people who'd make it. We looked like people who wouldn't give up when things got hard. But Marcus did give up. He gave up on me. Elijah. 3 months. That's all it took for him to decide fatherhood wasn't for him. "I can't do this," he'd said that morning. "I'm 26 years old. I'm not ready to be locked down. I need to figure out my life." "We have a son," I'd said. "Your life is already figured out." "No, your life is figured out. You wanted this baby." I went along with it because I thought I'd feel different when he got here. But I don't. I look at him and I just feel trapped. Our son. Our beautiful, innocent son. He made Marcus feel trapped. I set the broken frame on the counter and walked to the window. It was starting to rain. People were running for cover, holding newspapers over their heads, ducking into doorways. Life was just continuing like normal out there. Like my entire world hadn't just collapsed. I pressed my forehead against the glass. It was cool and damp. Closed my eyes. I thought about calling my best friend, Sarah. But Sarah was in medical school now. She was busy saving lives and learning anatomy and dating that guy from her study group. She didn't have time to hear about my disaster of a marriage. I thought about calling Marcus's mother. But what would I say? Your son abandoned us. She'd probably make excuses for him. She'd probably say he needed space. She'd probably tell me to be patient. I was so tired of being patient. I was so tired of being understanding. I was so tired of being the one who held everything together while everyone else got to fall apart. Behind me, Elijah started to cry. It was his hungry cry, the one that started soft and built into a wail if I didn't move fast enough. I turned away from the window and went to him. He was awake, his little arms reaching up toward me. His eyes were wide and clear. He had no idea that everything had changed. He just knew he needed me. I picked him up and carried him to the couch. As I settled in to feed him, I noticed something on the kitchen table. It was Marcus's set of keys. House keys. Car keys. The little keychain I'd gotten him for his birthday with both our initials engraved on it. He'd left them behind. Like he was making it official. Like he was closing the door on this chapter permanently. I felt something shift in my chest. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was something sharper. Harder. It was anger. How dare he? How dare he create a life with me and then just walk away like it meant nothing? How dare he look at our son and feel trapped instead of blessed? How dare he leave me here alone with no money, no plan, no support? Elijah finished eating and let out a little sigh, content and sleepy. I held him close and felt his heartbeat against mine. It's just us now, I whispered to him. But that's okay. We're going to be okay. I didn't believe it yet, but I needed to say it. I needed to hear the words out loud. The rain was coming down harder now, drumming against the window. The apartment was getting dark. I should turn on a light. I should clean up the broken glass. I should figure out what to do next. But instead, I just sat there with my son, listening to the rain, and wondering how everything I'd built had crumbled so fast. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face. Not the face from that morning, cold and decided. The other face. The one I fell in love with. It was 3 a.m. when the memory hit me like a wave. We'd met at a coffee shop. Not in some romantic movie-perfect way. I'd spilled my latte all over his laptop. He'd jumped up, cursing, trying to save his screen with a handful of napkins. I'd apologized over and over, mortified, offering to pay for repairs, for a new computer, for anything. He'd looked up at me and laughed. It's okay, he'd said. This thing was dying anyway. Maybe you just put it out of its misery. That laugh. God, that laugh had hooked me instantly. We talked for 2 hours that day. He told me he was working in construction, saving up to start his own contracting business. He had plans, big dreams. He was going to build custom homes for families, something meaningful, something that lasted. I told him I was finishing my associate degree in early childhood education. I wanted to open a daycare someday, place where kids felt safe and seen. We're both builders, he'd said, smiling at me over his replacement coffee. Just different materials. I thought it was the smartest thing anyone had ever said. 6 months later, we moved in together. A small apartment in a neighborhood that wasn't great but wasn't terrible. We decorated it with furniture from thrift stores and sidewalk finds. Marcus built us a bookshelf from reclaimed wood. I painted the kitchen cabinets yellow because I read somewhere that yellow made people happy. We were happy then. I know we were. That part wasn't a lie. But when did it change? I lay there in the dark, holding Elijah against my chest, trying to trace back to the exact moment everything started to break. It was the pregnancy test. I remember standing in the bathroom of our apartment, staring at those 2 pink lines. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the stick. We'd been careful. We talked about kids eventually, but not yet. Not when we were barely making rent. Not when I still had a year left of school. I walked out into the living room where Marcus was watching a basketball game. I didn't say anything. I just held up the test. He stared at it for what felt like forever. Then he muted the TV. "Are you sure?" he asked. "3 tests. All positive." He nodded slowly. His jaw was tight. He wasn't smiling. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay. We can do this. People do this all the time, right?" "Right," I said. But my voice sounded small and uncertain. He stood up and hugged me. But it wasn't the kind of hug that made me feel safe. It was the kind of hug that felt like he was trying to convince himself of something. That should have been my first warning. But I ignored it. 'Cause I wanted to believe in us. I wanted to believe that we'd be okay. The pregnancy was hard. I was sick constantly. Morning sickness that lasted all day. I couldn't keep food down. I lost weight instead of gaining it. My professors were understanding, but I had to drop 2 classes. My graduation got pushed back a year. Marcus started working longer hours. Double shifts when he could get them. He said it was because we needed money for the baby. But I noticed he was volunteering for every late job, every weekend project, every out-of-town assignment. He was avoiding home. Avoiding me. Avoiding the reality of what was coming. "Are you okay?" I'd asked him one night when he came home at 11. I was 7 months pregnant by then. Huge and uncomfortable and lonely. "I'm fine," he said. "Just tired. We never talk anymore. We're talking right now." "No, we're not." He sighed and rubbed his face. "What do you want me to say? I'm working my ass off so we can afford this baby. What else am I supposed to do? You could be here. You could help me put the crib together. You could come to the doctor's appointments. You could act like you actually want this." His face went hard. "I'm doing the best I can." "Are you?" We stared at each other for a long moment. Then he grabbed a beer from the fridge and went to the bedroom without another word. I slept on the couch that night. My back ached and the baby was kicking and I cried until I had no tears left. That's when I should have known. That's when I should have seen where this was heading. But I told myself it was just stress. Just fear. Just the normal anxiety every new parent feels. Once the baby came, once Marcus saw his son, everything would change. Except it didn't change. When Elijah was born, Marcus was there. He held my hand through the contractions. He cut the umbilical cord. He cried when they placed our son in his arms for the first time. "He's perfect," Marcus whispered, staring down at Elijah's tiny face. For 3 days I thought we'd made it. I thought the hard part was over and now we'd be a real family. But then we brought Elijah home and reality hit. The sleepless nights. The constant crying. The feeding every 2 hours. The diapers and the laundry and the overwhelming, crushing responsibility of keeping another human being alive. Marcus started sleeping in the living room. He said it was so he could get rest before work. But I knew the truth. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle the noise and the chaos and the fact that our lives weren't ours anymore. I was drowning. I was alone with a newborn, healing from childbirth, running on 3 hours of sleep. And my partner had checked out completely. "I need help," I told him one morning when Elijah was 6 weeks old. "I can't do this by myself. What do you want me to do? I'm working." "You're always working. You're never here. Someone has to pay the bills. And someone has to raise our son. That someone shouldn't just be me." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that terrified me. It was resentment. He resented me. He resented Elijah. He resented the life we'd created. "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly. Those words. Those 5 words. They cut deeper than any insult, any fight, any slammed door. "Neither did I shot back. "But he's here now. He's our son. We don't get to just opt out because it's hard." Marcus didn't respond. He grabbed his keys and left for work. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then he'd been cold, distant. He'd come home late every night. He stopped asking about Elijah. Stopped holding him. Stopped even looking at him sometimes. I tried to talk to him a dozen times. Tried to fix whatever was broken between us. But he'd shut down completely. Built a wall so high I couldn't climb over it. And this morning he'd torn down the wall by burning the whole house down. Elijah shifted in my arms, making a small sound in his sleep. I looked down at his face, peaceful and innocent. He looked so much like Marcus. The same nose, the same chin, the same thick eyelashes. How could Marcus look at this face and feel nothing? How could he walk away from something so perfect? The apartment was still dark, still quiet. The rain had stopped, leaving everything wet and gray. Felt heavy, exhausted. Me. But somewhere underneath the exhaustion, underneath the heartbreak, something else was stirring. Question. What now? Marcus was gone. The money was almost gone. I had no degree, no job, no family nearby who could help. I had a 3-month-old baby who depended on me for everything. What was I supposed to do? I thought about my mother's voice. You made your bed, now you lie in it. She'd say it with love, but she'd say it. Because that's what people said to girls like me. Girls who got pregnant young. Girls who didn't finish school. Girls who chose the wrong man. But I didn't choose this. I didn't choose to be abandoned. I didn't choose to raise a child alone. Though maybe I did choose it in a way. I chose to ignore the signs. I chose to believe in someone who didn't believe in us. Elijah's breathing was soft and steady against my chest. In and out. In and out. The most natural thing in the world. I won't let you down, I whispered to him. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I won't let you down. The sky outside was starting to lighten. Dawn was coming. Another day was starting whether I was ready for it or not. There was a time when mornings felt like gifts instead of battles. I woke up thinking about that. About the before. About who I was when life still made sense. Before Marcus. Before Elijah. Before everything got so complicated. I was 21 when I moved into my first real apartment. Not a dorm room. Not my parents' house. A tiny studio with windows that faced east so the morning sun came in golden and warm. I'd furnished it with a futon, a coffee table I'd painted turquoise, and plants I somehow managed not to kill. I had a routine back then. I'd wake up at 6, make coffee in my little French press, and sit by the window with my textbook. I was studying child development, reading about Piaget and Vygotsky and attachment theory. Learning about how children's brains formed, how they learned to trust, how the earliest years shaped everything that came after. I loved it. Every word, every concept, every case study. On Tuesdays and Thursdays I had class at 8. I'd walk to campus through the park, earbuds in, listening to podcasts about education reform. I'd get to the lecture hall early and sit in the 3rd row because that's where the serious students sat. Not so close that you looked desperate, but not so far back that you could hide. After class, I worked at a daycare center called Little Wonders. It was in a church basement with colorful murals painted on the walls and alphabet rugs on the floor. I was an assistant teacher in the toddler room. 12 kids between 18 months and 3 years old. Chaos and joy in equal measure. I remember their names. All of them. Jasmine, who only ate chicken nuggets cut into triangles. Marcus. Different Marcus, sweet Marcus, who brought me dandelions from the playground every single day. Sophia, who called me Miss Lily, even though my name was Miss Lila. Those kids filled my heart in ways I didn't know were possible. When they hugged my legs as I walked in the door. When they showed me their drawings of houses and families and dogs with 6 legs. When they cried and I could hold them and make them feel safe again. That's what I wanted to do with my life. Create safety. Be joy. Create a space where children could be children. My apartment back then smelled like lavender candles and coffee. I had a little balcony where I'd sit in the evenings with a glass of cheap wine and a book. Sometimes my roommate from freshman year, Tasha, would come over and we'd cook dinner together. Spaghetti or stir-fry or breakfast for dinner because we were broke but creative. We'd talk about our futures like they were certainties. Tasha was going to be a nurse. She was going to work in pediatrics and save children's lives. I was going to get my bachelor's degree, then my master's, then open my own preschool with a sliding scale payment system so every family could afford it. You're going to change lives, Tasha told me once, washing dishes in my tiny sink. That's the plan, I said, drying a plate. No, I'm serious. You have this thing with kids. They trust you instantly. That's rare. I smiled, embarrassed by the compliment. I just think every kid deserves to feel seen. You know. See. That's what I'm talking about. You're going to be amazing. I believed her. I believed in myself. I believed I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My parents were proud of me. I was the first person in my family to go to college. My mom worked as a cashier at a grocery store. My dad drove trucks long haul, gone for weeks at a time. They didn't have much, but they helped when they could. $100 here. A bag of groceries there. A gas card when my tank was empty. You're going to make it, my dad said to me once. His voice rough with emotion. You're going to do what we couldn't do. That weight, that responsibility, that pride. Carried it everywhere. My life wasn't perfect. I had student loans. I worked 30 hours a week while taking 15 credit hours. I ate ramen more nights than I care to admit. I drove a car that made suspicious noises and had duct tape holding the bumper on. But I was moving forward. Every semester I got closer to my degree. Every paycheck I paid down a little debt. Every day at Little Wonders I got better at my craft. I had dreams that felt achievable. A future that felt real. And then I spilled coffee on Marcus's laptop. At first, dating him felt like an addition to my life, not a replacement. We'd meet for lunch between his job sites and my classes. We'd watch movies at his place on Friday nights. We'd go to flea markets on Sunday mornings and look for furniture he could refinish. He was different from guys I'd dated before. He had direction, ambition. He talked about building a business, not just working a job. He talked about creating something that would last. I want to build homes for families, he told me once, lying on my futon with his hands behind his head. Real homes, not just cookie-cutter houses. Places with character. Places where people make memories. That's beautiful, I said, curled up next to him. What about you? What's your end game? A preschool. Maybe a non-profit. Something that helps kids who slip through the cracks. He turned to look at me. We're going to do good things, aren't we? Yeah, I said. We are. I meant it. We both did. For a while we balanced each other perfectly. He'd show up at the daycare to pick me up after work, and the kids would swarm him. He'd get down on their level, talk to them about the trucks they were playing with, pretend to be a dinosaur to make them laugh. You're good with them, I told him in the car one day. They're easy, he said, shrugging. You just have to not be a jerk. Not everyone gets that. He smiled and reached over to hold my hand. Good thing I'm not everyone. My life had expanded. I had my school, my work, my friends, and now Marcus. I'd wake up in his arms some mornings and feel like I'd won some kind of lottery. Like I'd found the person who would walk through life with me. I introduced him to Tasha over brunch one Saturday. She grilled him with questions about his intentions, his 5-year plan, his views on marriage and kids. You're intense, Marcus laughed, holding up his hands in surrender. She's my best friend, Tasha said, not smiling. I'm supposed to be intense. Later in the bathroom, Tasha grabbed my arm. He's cute. He seems solid. But don't lose yourself, okay? What do you mean? I mean, don't do what Sarah did. Don't drop out of school for a guy. Don't put your dreams on hold. You're too close. I won't, I promised. I'm not like that. But then I got pregnant. And everything I promised myself, everything I swore I wouldn't do, everything I'd built, it all started to crumble. At first I tried to hold on. I stayed in school. I kept working at Little Wonders. I told myself I could do both. Be a mom and finish my degree. Women did it all the time. But the morning sickness was brutal. I'd have to run out of the classroom in the middle of lectures. I'd throw up in the daycare bathroom between diaper changes. I lost weight. I was exhausted constantly. My grades started slipping. Maybe you should take a semester off, my advisor suggested gently. Focus on your health. Come back when you're ready. I can't stop now, I said. I'm almost done. You'll still be almost done next semester. Or the semester after. Your degree isn't going anywhere. But I knew the statistics. I knew that students who took time off rarely came back. Life got in the way. Responsibilities piled up. Dreams got shelved indefinitely. Still, I had no choice. By my second trimester, I withdrew from classes. I cut my hours at Little Wonders to part-time. I moved in with Marcus to save money. And just like that, the life I'd built started to disappear. My turquoise coffee table went into storage. My plants died because I was too tired to water them. My routine evaporated. I stopped listening to podcasts, stopped reading for pleasure, stopped meeting Tasha for brunch because I was too nauseous or too tired or too overwhelmed. You doing okay? Tasha texted me one day. Yeah, just tired. I miss you. I miss you too. But I didn't make plans to see her. I was too ashamed. Ashamed that I'd become exactly what I swore I wouldn't be. A statistic. Cautionary tale. A girl who got derailed by a pregnancy. By the time Elijah was born, I didn't recognize my life anymore. I lived in Marcus's apartment, surrounded by his stuff, living by his schedule. I hadn't been to campus in months. I hadn't seen my coworkers. My old life felt like a dream I'd once had. And now, holding my son in the dark, that dream felt impossibly far away. I used to be someone with a future, with plans, with purpose. Now I was just someone barely surviving. Day 2 without Marcus. The rent envelope sat on the counter. Me. I opened the banking app on my phone for the 4th time that morning, hoping the number would somehow be different. It wasn't. $342. Rent was $1,200. I did the math in my head. Even if I begged the landlord for an extension, even if I asked for 2 weeks, I couldn't come up with that much money. Not legally. Not quickly. Elijah was crying again. Always crying. My breasts ached from feeding him. My body ached from carrying him. My head ached from not sleeping. I made a list on the back of an envelope. What I had, $342. Half a can of formula. 4 diapers. A box of pasta. A jar of sauce. 3 eggs. What I needed, everything else. The electricity bill was taped to the fridge. Past due. $87. They'd already sent one warning. The next letter would be a shut-off notice. My phone buzzed. Marcus's mother. Can we talk? I stared at the message. What was there to say? Your son abandoned his family. Your son is a coward. Your son destroyed my life. I typed back. Not today. She responded immediately. He's staying with me. He needs space to think. Space to think. Like this was a philosophical problem he needed to work through. Like we were an abstract concept instead of real people who needed him. I threw my phone on the couch. Elijah was still crying. I picked him up, bouncing him automatically, my mind somewhere else entirely. He needed a diaper change. I had 4 left. 4 diapers until I had to figure out how to buy more. The apartment smelled like spoiled milk and desperation. I hadn't showered in 3 days. My hair was greasy. My clothes were stained with spit up. I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized myself. Dark circles under my eyes. Cracked lips. A woman dissolving in real time. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Is this Lila Henderson? Yes. This is Jennifer from Little Wonders Daycare. We haven't received your call about returning to work. We need to know if you're planning to come back or if we should fill your position. My position. My job. The one thing I'd been holding on to in the back of my mind. The idea that maybe I could go back. Maybe I could restart. I have a 3-month-old. I don't have childcare. We offer employee childcare at a discount. Didn't you receive the packet? Packet. Somewhere in a pile of mail I hadn't opened. Buried under bills and hospital statements and diaper coupons. I need to think about it. We need an answer by Friday. I'm sorry, Lila, but we've been holding this position for 3 months. We have applications piling up. Friday. 2 days away. Okay. I'll call you back. I hung up and sat down on the floor. Elijah in my lap. The phone in my hand. Could go back to work. Make $12 an hour. 40 hours a week before taxes. I tried to do the math, but my brain wouldn't cooperate. Not enough. It wasn't enough to cover rent and food and formula and electricity and everything else. But it was something. It was more than $342. Called my mother. She answered on the third ring. Lila. What's wrong? Everything. Everything was wrong. Marcus left. Silence. Then. What do you mean left? He left. 2 days ago. He said he can't do this. He's done. More silence. I could hear my mother breathing. Processing. Preparing her response. Where is he now? His mother's house. And where are you? The apartment. Apartment. But I can't pay rent. Have no money, Mom. I have nothing. How much do you need? Hope flared in my chest. Painful and bright. $1,200 for rent. Plus utilities. Plus. Lila. Her voice was gentle but firm. I don't have that. Your father and I are barely covering our own rent right now. His hours got cut last month. The hope died. Oh, can you apply for assistance? Food stamps. WIC. There are programs. I know. I'll figure it out. Do you want to come home? You and the baby. Just until you get back on your feet. Back to my childhood bedroom. Back to being a child myself. Back to admitting I'd failed at being an adult. There's no room, I said quietly. My parents lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. They slept in the living room and rented out the bedroom to make ends meet. We'll make room. But I could hear it in her voice. The worry. The strain. They couldn't afford another mouth to feed. They couldn't afford diapers and formula and a crying baby in their tiny apartment. Let me try some things first, I said. I'll call you back. Lila. I have to go. Elijah needs me. I hung up before she could say whatever she was going to say. Before she could offer help she couldn't afford to give. Before I could hear the disappointment in her voice. I was completely alone. That's when it hit me. The full weight of it. I had no partner. No family who could help. No savings. No degree. No career. I had a baby who needed everything and nothing to give him. I laid Elijah down in his crib and walked to the kitchen. Opened the cabinets. 1 box of pasta. 1 jar of sauce. 3 eggs. Half a loaf of bread that was starting to mold. The freezer had ice cubes and a freezer-burned bag of peas. I checked the formula can. Maybe enough for 2 more bottles. Then what? My hands started shaking. I thought about calling Marcus. Begging him to come back. Promising I'd be better, easier, less needy. Promising anything if he'd just help me take care of our son. But I knew he wouldn't come. And even if he did, what then? I'd be tied to someone who resented me. Who looked at our child and saw a trap instead of a gift. Well, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't. But what could I do? Pulled out my laptop. The old one with the cracked screen that barely held a charge. Logged into the internet. Started searching. Emergency assistance. Food banks. Government programs. Churches that helped single mothers. Anything. The applications were endless. Proof of income. Proof of residency. Social security numbers. Birth certificates. Bank statements. References. Wait times of 4 to 6 weeks. 6 weeks. I'd be evicted in 2. Found a list of food banks. Wrote down addresses. Tomorrow I'd go. I'd swallow my pride and stand in line and take whatever they'd give me. A notification popped up on my screen. Email from the hospital. Another bill. $3,000 for the birth. Insurance had covered some but not all. Payment due in 30 days. Closed the laptop. Elijah started crying again. That sharp, desperate cry that meant he was hungry. I made a bottle with the last of the formula. Watched him drink it. His eyes were closed. His little hand wrapped around my finger. Trusting me completely. How was I supposed to feed him tomorrow? I logged back onto my phone. Scrolled through my contacts. friends from college, co-workers from the daycare, people I hadn't talked to in months. Who could I ask for money? Who could I beg? My thumb hovered over Tasha's name. But Tasha was in medical school, living on student loans. She had less than I did. Sarah. Well, Sarah had moved to another state for a job. Marcus's friends. They'd take his side. Tell me I was being dramatic. Tell me to give him space. Had no one. The sun was setting outside. The apartment was getting dark. I should turn on a light. But every hour the lights were on was money I didn't have. So I sat in the growing darkness with my son, watching shadows stretch across the walls, and felt myself disappearing into them. This was it. This was rock bottom. This was what it felt like to have absolutely nothing. No money. No food. No options. No way out. I thought about my old life. My turquoise coffee table. My plants. My morning routine. My future. All of it gone. Demolished. Like it had never existed. Marcus had taken everything when he left. But worse than that, he'd shown me the truth. I'd never really had anything at all. I'd just been pretending. Playing house. Playing adult. Playing at having a life that could withstand impact. One hit and it all came down. Elijah finished his bottle. I held him close. His heartbeat against mine. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. For bringing him into this. For not being enough. For failing before I'd even really started. The apartment was completely dark now. Silent except for our breathing. And somewhere in that silence I heard it. Thought. Small and vicious. What if I couldn't do this? What if I wasn't strong enough? What if giving up was the only honest option left? I woke up on the couch with Elijah on my chest and sunlight burning through the window. For 3 seconds I forgot. For 3 beautiful seconds I thought it was a normal morning. Then reality crashed back in. No Marcus. No money. No formula. Elijah was stirring, making the small sounds that meant he'd be screaming in about 5 minutes if I didn't feed him. I had nothing to feed him with. Panic rose in my throat. I grabbed my phone. 7:30 in the morning. The food bank opened at 9. Could make it. Had to make it. I changed Elijah's diaper. My second to last one. Then I strapped him into his car seat and carried him down 3 flights of stairs to my car. The car that made a grinding noise when I turned the key. The car that had a gas gauge hovering just above empty. Please start. Please. Started. The food bank was on the other side of town. A 20-minute drive that felt like an hour. Elijah cried the entire way. That hungry cry that tore at my chest. I sang to him. Talked to him. Apologized over and over. I know, baby. You know. We're almost there. Just hold on. The line outside the food bank was already wrapped around the building. 30 people. Maybe 40. Mothers with children. Elderly men with shopping carts. Young guys in construction clothes who probably got their hours cut. I got in line with Elijah in my arms. The sun was already hot. He was crying. People were staring. How old? The woman in front of me asked. She had 2 kids with her, both under 5. 3 months. He's beautiful. She smiled, but it was a tired smile. A smile that knew exactly why we were both standing here. The line moved slowly. So slowly. Elijah's crying got worse. I bounced him, swayed, did everything I'd learned to soothe him. Nothing worked. Do you have a bottle? The woman asked. I ran out of formula. Her face softened. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small can. Travel size. Maybe 3 or 4 bottles worth. Here. Take this. I can't. Yes, you can. Have more at home. Take it. I almost cried right there in line. Thank you. Thank you so much. She just nodded and turned back around. I mixed a bottle right there on the sidewalk using the water bottle in my diaper bag. Elijah drank like he'd been starving. Maybe he had been. By the time we got to the front of the line, it was 10:30. 2 hours. 2 hours standing in the sun. Name? The volunteer asked, not looking up from her clipboard. Lila Henderson. First time. Yes. I need to see an ID and proof of address. I fumbled for my wallet. Handed over my driver's license. I don't have proof of address with me. Can I bring it next time? We can't give you anything without proof of address. It's policy. Please. Have a baby. Have nothing at home. I just need. I'm sorry. Policy is policy. Come back with a utility bill or lease agreement. The people behind me were getting restless. A man coughed pointedly. Child whined about being hot. Okay, I said, my voice breaking. Okay. I walked back to my car in a daze. 2 hours. 2 hours for nothing. Elijah had fallen asleep, finally full. I sat in the driver's seat and just stared at the steering wheel. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to put my fist through something. Instead, I drove home. Used the last fumes of gas in my tank. Parked in front of the apartment and sat there for another 10 minutes because I couldn't face going back inside. My phone rang. The landlord. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the message. Ms. Henderson, this is Paul Martinez. I wanted to follow up about rent. It's the 3rd of the month and I haven't received payment. Please call me back by end of business today or we'll need to discuss next steps. Next steps. Eviction. That's what he meant. Called him back. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Mr. Martinez, this is Lila Henderson. I'm calling about rent. Yes. Are you able to make payment today? No. I need an extension. My situation has changed. I just need 2 weeks to figure things out. What kind of situation? Personal. Family. I just need a little time. He sighed. Look, Lila, I like you. You've always paid on time. But I have a mortgage to pay on this building. I can give you until the 10th. After that, I have to start the eviction process. 7 days. Thank you, I whispered. I'm sorry. I really am. But that's the best I can do. He hung up. 7 days to come up with $1,200. I carried Elijah upstairs. Put him down for a nap. Then I did what I swore I'd never do. I called Marcus. He answered on the 5th ring. Yeah, it's me. I know. I need money. For rent. For formula. I don't have any money to give you. You have a job. You have a paycheck. Your son needs food, Marcus. I have bills too. My truck payment. Insurance. I'm staying with my mom, but I'm giving her money for rent. So your truck is more important than your son eating. Don't do that. Don't guilt trip me. Guilt trip you. You abandoned us. You left me with nothing. You'll figure it out. You always do. The line went dead. He'd hung up on me. Called back. It went straight to voicemail. He'd blocked me. I stood there holding my phone, shaking with rage so pure it felt like poison in my veins. He always do. When had I ever figured it out? When had I ever had to survive alone with a baby and no resources? I wanted to drive to his mother's house, pound on the door, scream at him in front of his family, make him face what he'd done. But I couldn't, 'cause I had no gas. And I had a sleeping baby who needed me to keep it together. So I did the only thing I could do. I started applying for assistance. I pulled up the government websites. NAP, WIC, Medicaid, Section 8 housing. Every program I could find. The applications were brutal. Pages and pages of questions. Income verification. Asset verification. They wanted bank statements, pay stubs, birth certificates, social security cards. I filled them out one by one. Elijah woke up halfway through, and I had to nurse him while typing with one hand. My back ached. My eyes burned from staring at the screen. By 5 p.m., I'd submitted 8 applications. Estimated processing time. 30 to 45 days. 30 days. I'd be homeless in 7. I searched for emergency assistance. Short-term help. Crisis intervention. I found a number for a local charity. Called and got an answering machine. St. Mary's Community Outreach is currently closed. Our hours are Monday through Friday 9 to 5. If this is a life-threatening emergency, please call 911. Otherwise, please leave a message and someone will return your call within 2 business days. I left a message, explained my situation, tried not to cry while talking to a machine. Then I searched for work. Anything, everything, restaurant jobs, retail, cleaning, data entry, night shift, weekend shifts, part-time, full-time. But every application asked the same questions. Do you have reliable transportation? Do you have childcare? Can you work evenings and weekends? Mo. My car was dying. I had no childcare. And even if I did, most of these jobs paid minimum wage. After taxes and childcare costs, I'd barely break even. The math didn't work. None of it worked. I slammed the laptop shut. Elijah was crying again. Always crying. I picked him up and walked to the kitchen. Opened the cabinet. The box of pasta stared back at me. I should eat something. I hadn't eaten since yesterday. But the thought of food made me nauseous. Instead, I made another bottle with the formula that woman had given me. Watched Elijah drink it. Wondered how I'd feed him tomorrow. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hey Lila, it's Marcus's mom. Can we talk? I want to help. I stared at the message. Help? What kind of help? Was she going to give me money? Was she going to talk sense into her son? Or was this just another person who wanted to make themselves feel better by offering sympathy without action? I didn't respond. Another text. I know you're upset. You have every right to be. But shutting everyone out won't help Elijah. My fingers moved before I could stop them. Your son shut me out. He left us with nothing. Where was your help then? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I didn't know things were this bad. Marcus told me you two were taking a break. He didn't tell me about the money. Of course he didn't. Because that would make him look like exactly what he was. Deadbeat. Coward. A man who abandoned his infant son. I need $1,200 for rent. Plus money for formula and diapers and food. Can you help with that? The 3 dots took forever. I can give you 300. That's all I have right now. I just paid my own rent. 300. Better than nothing. But nowhere near enough. Okay. Thank you. I'll drop it off tomorrow morning. And Lila. Sorry. I'm so sorry he did this to you. I didn't respond. Sorry didn't pay rent. Sorry didn't feed babies. Sorry was just a word people said to make themselves feel less guilty about not actually helping. But $300 was $300. Combined with what I had, that was $642. Still short by $558. Where was I going to get $558 in 7 days? I looked around the apartment. At the furniture that mostly belonged to Marcus. At the TV he'd bought last year. At the PlayStation in the entertainment center. Could sell things. I could pawn things. I made a list. TV. PlayStation. My laptop. My old textbooks. Anything with value. It wasn't much. But maybe it was enough. The sun was setting again. Another day gone. Another day closer to eviction. Elijah had fallen asleep in my arms. His face was peaceful, innocent, unaware that his entire world was collapsing. I won't let us end up on the street, I whispered to him. I promise you. Whatever it takes. But even as I said it, I didn't know if it was a promise I could keep. Day 5 without Marcus. I'd sold everything I could. The TV went for $80 at the pawn shop. The PlayStation for $60. My laptop for $45 because the screen was cracked and it was old. My college textbooks for $12 total. The gold necklace my grandmother gave me for my 16th birthday, the only piece of jewelry I owned that was worth anything, went for $287. Combined with what I had and what Marcus's mother had given me, I had $929. Still short by $271. Tried everything. Applied for emergency loans and got denied because I had no credit. Posted on community Facebook groups asking if anyone needed cleaning or babysitting or yard work. Got 3 responses. One was a scam. One wanted me to work for $5 an hour under the table. One never messaged me back. I'd gone back to the food bank with a utility bill and finally gotten food. Canned goods mostly. Beans. Vegetables that came in tin cans with labels peeling off. But at least it was food. WIC had approved me for formula. That was something. Small mercy. But I still didn't have rent money. And the 10th was tomorrow. I sat on the floor of the empty living room. The space where the TV used to be looked like a missing tooth. The apartment felt hollow, echoing. Elijah was asleep in his crib. I'd run out of diapers that morning and had to make an emergency trip to the dollar store. 8 diapers for $3. They leaked, but they were better than nothing. My phone buzzed. The landlord again. Ms. Henderson, I haven't heard from you. Tomorrow is the 10th. If I don't receive full payment by 5 p.m., I'll have to file eviction paperwork on the 11th. Please call me. I didn't call him back. What was I supposed to say? I tried. I'm short by almost $300. Please have mercy. People like me didn't get mercy. We got exactly what we deserved for making bad choices. For getting pregnant too young. For trusting the wrong man. For not having family with money or a degree to fall back on. I pulled up my banking app one more time. $929.34. I could pay part of the rent. Tell the landlord I'd have the rest soon. But he'd already given me an extension. He'd already been more patient than most landlords would be. My chest felt tight. Like I couldn't get enough air. This was it. This was actually happening. In 6 days I'd be evicted. Me and my 3-month-old son would be on the street. I thought about my mother's offer. Come home. Squeeze into that tiny 1-bedroom apartment. Sleep on the floor. Be a burden. But even that wasn't an option anymore. My mother had called yesterday to tell me the tenant in their bedroom had just renewed his lease for another year. There was no space. She'd cried on the phone. Actually cried. Apologized over and over. You can stay for a few days, she'd said. Just until you figure something out. But baby, we can't. We don't have room long term. Few days. Then what? A homeless shelter. My car. A motel room until the money ran out. I googled homeless shelters in the area. Most were full. Most had waiting lists. Most didn't accept mothers with infants because they didn't have the facilities. One shelter had space. Called Grace House. This is Denise. I need information about staying there. I have a 3-month-old baby. Okay. We have a family wing. Are you currently experiencing homelessness? Not yet. But I will be in 6 days. All right. I can put you on the waiting list, but I need to be honest. Our wait time is usually 2 to 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I'd be sleeping in my car for 3 weeks. What do I do until then? There are emergency vouchers for motels, but those are first come, first served. You need to call 211 every morning at 8 a.m. and see if they have availability. It's usually only for a night or 2 at a time. So I have to call every single day and hope there's room. I'm sorry. I wish I had better options to give you. Hung up. This was the system. This was what happened when you fell through the cracks. You called numbers and got put on waiting lists and bounced from place to place and treated like a problem instead of a person. I walked to Elijah's room. Stood over his crib. Watched him sleep. He was so small. So helpless. So completely dependent on me. And I was failing him. The thought came quietly. Insidiously. Like poison seeping in. What if he'd be better off without me? What if I called Child Protective Services? Told them I couldn't care for him. Let them place him with a family who had money and stability and a future. He'd grow up in a real home. With parents who could afford diapers without having to choose between that and food. With a bedroom of his own. With opportunities. Instead of this. Instead of a mother who couldn't even keep a roof over his head. I sank down onto the floor next to his crib. Put my head in my hands. I couldn't do this. I couldn't be strong anymore. I couldn't keep fighting a battle I'd already lost. What was the point? What was I even fighting for? Every door I knocked on slammed in my face. Every application got denied. Every phone call led nowhere. Every day was just another exercise in failing. Marcus was right to leave. I was a disaster. I was drowning and pulling everyone down with me. Elijah deserved better. He deserved a mother who had her life together. A mother who could provide. A mother who wasn't sitting on the floor of an empty apartment contemplating giving up. Pulled out my phone. Googled how to surrender your child. The screen blurred. I was crying. When had I started crying? My finger hovered over the first link. An article about safe surrender laws. How you could drop off a baby at a hospital or fire station, no questions asked. Could do it. I could wrap him up, drive to the nearest hospital and just walk away. He'd be safe. Federal warm. Adopted by people who wanted him. People who were ready. Be free. I could go back to school. Restart my life. Pretend none of this ever happened. My finger moved closer to the link. Then Elijah made a sound. A small sigh in his sleep. His little hand curled into a fist. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He had my nose. My chin. His father's eyes, but my expressions. When he smiled, those rare, perfect moments when he actually smiled, it was my smile. He was mine. Not a burden. Not a mistake. Not something to be surrendered. I locked my phone and threw it across the room. What was I thinking? What was wrong with me? How had I gotten to a place where I was Googling how to abandon my own child? Shame burned through me. Hot and acidic. I wasn't that person. I wouldn't become that person. Marcus gave up. Marcus walked away. But I wasn't Marcus. I was Elijah's mother. The only person in the world who loved him unconditionally. Who would die for him. Who would fight for him even when fighting seemed pointless. Pulled myself up. Walked to the kitchen. Splashed cold water on my face. In the cabinet, I found the pasta and sauce I'd been saving. I boiled water. Cooked the pasta. Made myself eat even though I had no appetite. I needed strength. I needed clarity. I needed to think. There had to be a way. There was always a way. People survived worse than this. Single mothers with less than I had figured it out every single day. I could find a job that paid under the table. I could work nights while Elijah slept and hire a teenager to sit in the apartment for $5 an hour. I could move somewhere cheaper. Studio. A room rental. Anything. Could sell plasma. I'd heard you could make $50 a session. Twice a week. That was $400 a month. I could ask churches for help. Go door to door to every single one until someone gave me rent money. I could panhandle. Stand on a corner with a sign and a baby and let strangers pity pay my bills. I wasn't above any of it. Not anymore. Pride was a luxury I couldn't afford. I finished eating. Washed the dish. Dried it. Put it away. Then I went to Elijah's room. Picked him up carefully so I wouldn't wake him. Held him against my chest. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry I almost gave up on us. I won't do it again. I promise. He shifted in his sleep. His hand grabbed my shirt. Something in my chest cracked open. Not breaking. Expanding. I'd been looking at this all wrong. I'd been seeing obstacles instead of opportunities. Dead ends instead of detours. Yes, I'd lost everything. Yes, I was alone. Yes, the system was designed to let people like me fail. But I was still breathing. Still standing. Still capable of fighting. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that tiny spark of defiance, that refusal to completely break, was all I needed to start building something new. I didn't have a plan yet. I didn't have answers. I didn't even have hope, not really. But I had something else. Something smaller but stronger. I had stubbornness. I had spite. I had the burning need to prove everyone wrong. Marcus thought I'd fail. Prove him wrong. The world thought single mothers like me were disposable. Prove them wrong. My own doubts whispered that I wasn't strong enough. Prove them wrong too. I put Elijah back in his crib. Kissed his forehead. Turned off the light. Then I went to the living room and pulled out a notebook. Started making a new list. Not what I'd lost. Not what I needed. But what I could do. What was actually within my control. The list was short. Pathetically short. But it was something. And something I was learning was infinitely better than nothing. The night stretched out ahead of me. Dark and uncertain. But somewhere in that darkness a path existed. I just had to find it. Or build it myself. I woke up on the morning of the 10th with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. It wasn't peace. It wasn't confidence. It was something harder and colder. It was the kind of clarity that comes when you've touched bottom and realize the only direction left is up. I had $929. Not enough for rent. Not enough for anything that mattered in the traditional sense. But maybe enough to bet on myself. The landlord would file eviction paperwork today if I didn't pay. That would take time. 30 days, maybe more, before they could actually force me out. 30 days to figure out what came next. I could give him the 900, beg for more time, promise the rest by the end of the month. Or I could use that money to build something, to change the equation entirely. I sat at the kitchen table with Elijah in my arms and a pen in my hand. I wrote down the truth, no matter how ugly it was. Truth. I couldn't afford this apartment anymore, even if Marcus came back. Truth. Minimum wage jobs wouldn't cover childcare and living expenses. Truth. The assistance programs would help, eventually, but not fast enough. Truth. I needed to change everything, not just fix what was broken. Underneath those truths, I wrote one more line. What do I actually want? Not what I should want. Not what was practical or realistic. What did I, Lila Henderson, actually want for my life and my son's life? The answer came immediately, like it had been waiting for me to finally ask the question. I wanted to finish my degree. I wanted to work with children. I wanted Elijah to grow up seeing his mother build something meaningful instead of just surviving. I wanted to stop being afraid. That was the core of it. The fear had been running my life. Fear of being judged. Fear of failing. Fear of admitting I needed help. Fear of taking risks because what if they didn't work out? But what had playing it safe gotten me? An eviction notice. An empty apartment. Partner who left. Maybe it was time to try something different. I opened my laptop. No, wait. Sold my laptop. I picked up my phone and started searching. Student parent housing. University resources. Emergency grants. Programs I'd been too proud or too scared to look into before. And I found something. Fresh Start Housing Initiative. A non-profit that provided transitional housing for single parents completing their education. Rent based on income. On-site childcare. Support services. There was a wait list. Of course there was. But they also had emergency placements for families in crisis. I qualified as crisis. Called the number. Rang 4 times. Fresh Start, this is Monica. I'm a single mother with an infant. I'm about to be evicted. I saw that you have emergency housing. Okay, let me pull up the intake form. Can I get your name? Lila Henderson. And you said you have an infant? Yes, 3 months old. Are you currently enrolled in school, or do you plan to enroll? I was enrolled. I had to stop when I got pregnant. But I want to go back. I'm 7 classes away from my associate degree in early childhood education. Okay, that's good. We prioritize parents who are actively pursuing education or job training. Do you have proof of your eviction? I will by tomorrow. My landlord is filing today. All right, I'm going to email you an application. It's long, I'll be honest. But if you can get it back to me within 48 hours, I can present your case at our emergency housing meeting on Friday. What are the chances I'll get approved? You pause. I can't make promises. But you sound motivated. You have a clear goal. That matters to our board. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. Fill out the application. Be thorough. Be honest. And Lila. Yes. Don't give up before you've even tried. I hung up and immediately opened the email. The application was intimidating. 20 pages. Questions about my financial history, my criminal background, my education, my goals, my support system. I started filling it out right there at the kitchen table. Where others might see a high school graduate with a failed relationship and no money, I wrote about my volunteer work at the daycare, my 3.8 GPA, my plans to open an affordable preschool in underserved communities. Where others might see a burden on the system, I wrote about being the first person in my family to pursue higher education, about breaking cycles, about showing my son that circumstances don't determine destiny. I wrote like my life depended on it. 'Cause it did. Elijah woke up hungry. I paused to feed him, then went right back to typing. He fell asleep on my chest. I adjusted him carefully and kept going. 3 hours later I finished. Read through it twice. Attached every document they'd asked for. Hit submit. Then I called the landlord. "Mr. Martinez, this is Lila Henderson." "Lila, I was hoping to hear from you. Do you have the rent?" "I have $900. I know that's not enough. I know you're going to file eviction. But I wanted to be honest with you about my situation." I told him everything. About Marcus leaving. About applying for assistance. About the housing program I just applied to. "If I get into this program, I'll be out by the end of the month. You can keep my deposit and the $900 to cover damages and lost rent. If I don't get in, I'll figure something else out. But I won't fight the eviction. I won't make this harder than it needs to be." He was quiet for a long moment. "You've always been a good tenant," he said finally. "I don't want to do this. But I have a business to run. I understand. Tell you what. I'll hold off on filing until Monday. That gives you 4 extra days. If you get into that program by then, we can work out an arrangement. If not, I have to move forward." 4 days. It wasn't much. But it was something. "Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Really. Good luck, Lila." I hung up and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. 4 days. Next I called Little Wonders Daycare. Jennifer answered. "Hi Jennifer, this is Lila Henderson. I know I'm past the deadline you gave me, but I want to talk about coming back." "Oh Lila. I'm sorry, but we filled that position yesterday." My heart sank. "Oh, okay. But actually I'm glad you called. One of our morning assistants just gave notice. She's moving out of state. It's only 20 hours a week, but the pay is $13 an hour and you'd get the childcare discount. 20 hours. $260 a week before taxes. It wasn't a lot. But combined with assistance programs, combined with cheaper housing if I got into Fresh Start, I'll take it. Don't you want to know the schedule?" "I don't care. I'll make it work." Jennifer laughed. "Okay then. Can you start Monday?" "Yes. Absolutely. Perfect. Come in Sunday afternoon and we'll do your paperwork." I hung up and actually smiled. Actually felt something like hope flickering in my chest. Had a job. I had an application pending for housing. I had 4 days to make this work. I looked at Elijah, still sleeping peacefully in my arms. "We're going to be okay," I whispered. "I don't know how yet. But we're going to be okay." That night, I did something I hadn't done since everything fell apart. Prayed. Not the formal kind of prayer I'd learned as a kid in church. Not asking for miracles or divine intervention. Just talking. To God, to the universe, to whoever might be listening. "I can't do this alone," I said into the darkness. "I've been trying to. I've been acting like I have to be strong enough and smart enough and brave enough all by myself. But I'm not. I'm scared and I'm tired and I don't know what I'm doing." Elijah stirred against my chest. I adjusted him gently. "But I'm not giving up. I'm going to fight for this. For him. For us. I need some help. I need something to work out. Just one thing. Please." It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't profound. But it was honest. And somehow saying it out loud made me feel lighter. I looked at the calendar on the wall. Today was the 10th. The emergency housing meeting was Friday the 14th. 4 days. 4 days to wait. Oh, keep moving forward. I cleaned the apartment that night. Swept the floors. Wiped down the counters. Organized Elijah's clothes. Did all the small things I'd been too exhausted and defeated to do. Not because it mattered if I was getting evicted anyway, but because I needed to feel like I had control over something, even if it was just whether my floor was clean. At midnight, I finally climbed into bed. Elijah was in his crib, sleeping soundly. The apartment was quiet. I pulled out my phone and looked at the sent email. The application I'd submitted. All those words I'd poured out about who I was and who I wanted to be. For the first time in weeks, I'd told the truth about myself. Not the failure version. Not the victim version. The real version. A young woman who made mistakes but was trying to fix them. A mother who was learning as she went. A person who had dreams that were still worth fighting for. I didn't know if it would be enough. If they'd see what I saw. If any of this would work out. But I'd done something I hadn't done since Marcus walked out. I'd bet on myself. And that decision, quiet, small, made in the middle of the night with a sleeping baby and an uncertain future, was the first step toward everything that came after. The waiting was the worst part. Friday morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. even though I hadn't set an alarm. My body was vibrating with nervous energy. The housing meeting was at 10. Monica from Fresh Start had said she'd call me by noon with a decision. 6 hours. I couldn't just sit there. I needed to move. To do something. Anything. I strapped Elijah into his stroller and went for a walk. The neighborhood was waking up. People leaving for work. Kids waiting for school buses. Normal life happening all around me. A week ago, watching that would have hurt. Would have reminded me of everything I didn't have. But today it felt different. Like I was watching a movie of a life I'd have someday instead of a life I'd never get back. We walked for an hour. Elijah loved it. He stared at everything with wide eyes. Trees, birds, a dog being walked by its owner. You're going to remember this, I told him. Not consciously, but somewhere in your brain, you'll remember that your mom didn't give up. That we kept moving forward even when it was hard. He made a cooing sound. I chose to believe it was agreement. By 8 a.m. we were back home. Fed him. Changed him. Put him down for his morning nap. Then I cleaned. Again. Even though I'd cleaned 2 days ago. I needed my hands busy. I scrubbed the bathroom until it gleamed. Organized the kitchen cabinets. Folded Elijah's tiny clothes into perfect squares. At 9:30 my phone rang. Too early. The meeting hadn't even started yet. It was Tasha. Oh my God, Lila, I just saw your Facebook post. Why didn't you call me? Facebook post. I hadn't posted anything on Facebook in months. What post? Your mom posted in the community group asking if anyone could help her daughter who's about to be evicted. Lila, why didn't you tell me things were this bad? Mortification burned through me. My mother had posted about me on Facebook. For everyone to see. I didn't want to bother you. You're in med school, you don't need. Bother me. We've been friends since freshman year. You think I wouldn't want to know? There's nothing you can do. Stop. Stop doing that. Stop deciding for other people what they can or can't handle. I'm sending you money. I don't have much, but I have something. Tasha, no. I'm sending it right now. Check your Venmo. My phone buzzed. $200 from Tasha with a note. For Elijah. And before you try to send it back, I'll be really insulted. Let people help you. I started crying. Right there in the middle of my spotless kitchen. Thank you, I managed. That's what family does. And Lila, whatever happens with the housing thing today, you're going to be okay. You're the strongest person I know. We talked for another 10 minutes. She made me promise to call her more. To stop carrying everything alone. To remember that asking for help wasn't weakness. When we hung up, I felt different. Lighter. At 10 a.m. exactly, I sat on the couch and stared at my phone. Somewhere across town, a group of people were sitting in a conference room deciding my fate. Looking at my application. Judging whether I was worth the risk. Please, I thought. Please let this work. The minutes crawled by. 10:15, 10:30, 10:45. Elijah woke up. I fed him while watching the clock. 11:15. My phone rang at 11:43. Monica from Fresh Start. I answered on the first ring. Hello. Lila, it's Monica. I just got out of the meeting. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely hear her. We'd like to offer you a place in our program. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. Lila. Are you there? Yes. Yes, I'm here. Just thank you. Thank you so much. She laughed. You earned it. Your application was one of the strongest we've seen. The board was impressed by your goals and your honesty about your situation. When can I move in? We have a unit available on the 20th. That's 9 days from now. Will that work? 9 days. I could stay with my parents for 9 days. I could make that work. Yes. Absolutely. Perfect. I'm emailing you the lease agreement and move-in paperwork now. Once you sign and return those, we'll get you scheduled for orientation. We talked for another 15 minutes about rent. Based on my income from Little Wonders, it would be $350 a month, and childcare, subsidized $75 a week, and support services, help with re-enrolling in school, assistance with job searches, parenting classes if I wanted them. It was everything. Everything I needed to start rebuilding. When I hung up, I sat there in shock for a full minute. Then I called my mother. Mom, I got it. I got into the housing program. She screamed. Actually screamed with joy. I heard my father in the background asking what was happening. When do you move in? The 20th. Can Elijah and I stay with you until then? Of course. Course, baby. We'll make it work. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not asking for help sooner. I'm sorry for. Stop. You have nothing to apologize for. You did what you had to do. And now you're fixing it. I'm so proud of you. Those words. I'd needed to hear those words so badly. We talked logistics. I pack up the apartment this weekend. Move the essentials to their place. Put everything else in storage until I had space for it. After I hung up with her, I called Mr. Martinez. I got into the program. I'll be out by the 20th. That's great news, Lila. Really great. Listen, about the $900 you gave me, I'm going to apply it to your last month here and return your deposit. That'll give you some cushion for the move. You don't have to do that. I know. But you've been through enough. Take the help. $700 deposit. With what Tasha sent and what Mr. Martinez was returning, I'd have almost $1,000 for the move. For new things. For starting over. Everything was falling into place. That weekend, I worked like I'd never worked before. Packed boxes. Sorted through belongings. Donated clothes I didn't need. Threw out broken things I'd been holding onto for no reason. Felt good. Therapeutic. Like I was physically removing the old life to make room for the new one. Sunday afternoon, I went to Little Wonders for paperwork. Jennifer showed me around the infant room where I'd be working. These are your babies, she said, gesturing to the cribs. 6 infants, ages 2 months to 1 year. You'll be assisting Maria. She's been here for 10 years. She'll teach you everything. My babies. I was going to spend my days taking care of babies while Elijah was in the toddler room down the hall. I'd see him at lunch. Rock him during nap time. It wasn't the life I'd planned. But it was a life. Real one. With purpose and progress and possibility. Monday morning, my first day back at work, I dropped Elijah off in the toddler room. He cried when I left. It broke my heart into pieces. But Maria, my supervisor, put a hand on my shoulder. He'll be fine in 5 minutes. They always are. Oh, do your job. He's in good hands. She was right. When I checked on him at 10 a.m., he was playing with blocks, perfectly content. The work was hard. Physically exhausting. 6 babies needing bottles and diaper changes and attention all at the same time. But I loved it. Every second of it. This was what I'd trained for. What I was good at. These babies needed me. And for the first time in weeks, I felt useful instead of useless. That first paycheck was $260 after taxes. I took a picture of it. Sent it to my mother with a caption. First step. She sent back a string of heart emojis. The days between Monday and moving day blurred together. Work. Time with Elijah. Packing. Planning. one foot in front of the other. I re-enrolled in school for the spring semester. 2 classes to start, both online so I could work around my schedule. I mapped out the next 2 years. If I took 2 classes a semester and 1 in the summer, I'd have my associate degree in 18 months. Then I could transfer to a 4-year program, get my bachelor's, eventually my master's. It felt impossible and possible at the same time. Too much and exactly enough. On the 19th, the day before move-in, I went back to the old apartment one last time. It was empty. All my stuff was either at my parents' place or in a storage unit I'd rented for $40 a month. I walked through the rooms. Remembered the girl who'd moved in here with Marcus. Young and hopeful and naive. She was gone. I'd never be her again. But maybe that was okay. Maybe that girl needed to die so this version of me could be born. The version who was harder, smarter, stronger. I locked the door behind me and left the keys in the mailbox for Mr. Martinez. Then I drove to my parents' apartment where Elijah was napping in a playpen in the living room, where my mother was making dinner, where I was safe and loved and supported. Tomorrow I'd move into fresh start housing. I'd have my own space again, my own kitchen and bedroom and bathroom. It would be small, tiny even, a 1-bedroom unit with worn carpet and old appliances. But it would be mine, earned, fought for, built on the ruins of everything I'd lost. I picked up Elijah and held him close. Tomorrow we start over, I whispered. Just you and me. And this time we're going to make it. 14 months later, I was sitting on the floor of our apartment. My apartment, I still had to remind myself, helping Elijah stack blocks. He was 17 months old now. Walking, becoming a real little person with opinions and preferences and the stubbornness of both his parents. Up, he demanded, handing me a red block. Where does it go? Yes. He pointed to the top of the tower. I placed it carefully. He clapped his hands and laughed. That laugh, it still hit me in the chest every single time. Pure joy, uncomplicated happiness. Life had gotten better. Not perfect, not easy, but better. I'd finished my associate degree 3 months ago. Walked across that stage in a black cap and gown with Elijah in the audience, held by my mother who cried through the entire ceremony. I'd cried too. For everything that degree represented. The nights studying after Elijah went to bed. The papers written on my phone during lunch breaks. The tests taken with 3 hours of sleep. But I'd done it. Now I was enrolled in the bachelor's program at State University. Still working at Little Wonders, but I'd been promoted to lead teacher in the toddler room. $14 an hour. Not much, but combined with assistance and the affordable rent at Fresh Start, it was enough. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. I'd made friends in the housing complex. Other single mothers fighting their way through school. We took turns watching each other's kids. Shared meals, celebrated every small victory like it was a major triumph. Elijah had a life, routine, stability. He went to bed at the same time every night in his own bedroom. He ate 3 meals a day. He had toys and books and clothes that fit. And he was happy, despite everything. Despite his father not being there. Despite the struggles. He was happy. Sometimes at night, I'd watch him sleep and feel overwhelming gratitude. Not for the circumstances that led us here, but for what we'd built from the ashes. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Probably Tasha. We texted every day now. She was in her 3rd year of med school, exhausted but thriving. But when I picked it up, the name on the screen made my blood run cold. Marcus's mother. I hadn't heard from her in over a year. Not since she'd given me $300 and disappeared. I'd assumed she'd sided with her son, chosen him over us. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello, Lila. It's Barbara. I know. Silence. Awkward and heavy. How have you been? She asked. Fine. We're fine. And Elijah? He's good. Healthy. Happy. I'd love to see him. There it was. The real reason for the call. Why now? Yes. It's been over a year. I know. I know I should have reached out sooner. I didn't know what to say. Marcus asked me not to contact you. He said it would make things harder. Anger flared in my chest. Harder for who? I should have ignored him. I should have checked on you. I'm sorry. Sorry. That word again. Meaningless and insufficient. If you want to see Elijah, you can, I said. But not with Marcus. I don't want him around my son. He's asking to see him too. And there it was. The real reason for this call. No. Lila. He abandoned us. He walked away when Elijah was 3 months old. He hasn't sent money. Hasn't called. Hasn't asked how his son is doing. And now he wants to see him. No. He's different now. He's been in therapy. He's trying to. I don't care. He made his choice. Elijah deserves to know his father. Those words hit like a slap. 'Cause they were true. And I hated that they were true. He's 17 months old, I said quietly. He doesn't know his father. Marcus is a stranger to him. It's not too late for that to change. Yes, it is. The moment he walked out, it was too late. Please, just think about it. Marcus has changed. He wants to be in Elijah's life now. Where was he when I was sleeping in my car? Where was he when I had $4 in my bank account and no formula? Where was he when I almost gave up because I couldn't see a way forward? Barbara didn't have an answer for that. I have to go, I said. Elijah needs me. Will you at least consider it? Goodbye, Barbara. I hung up and sat there staring at the wall. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. Elijah crawled into my lap. Mama sad. I looked down at his face. His beautiful, innocent face. He didn't remember Marcus. Didn't ask about him. Didn't wonder why other kids had dads and he didn't. Mama's okay, I said, forcing a smile. Let's build another tower. But I wasn't okay. The call had cracked open something I'd worked hard to seal shut. All the anger, all the hurt, all the rage I'd channeled into survival instead of dealing with. Marcus wanted to be in Elijah's life now. Now that the hard part was over. Now that I'd done everything alone. Part of me wanted to tell him to go to hell. To keep him away from us forever. To make him feel even a fraction of the abandonment I'd felt. But another part of me, the part that had grown up without a father, that knew what that absence felt like, wondered if I was being selfish. If Elijah deserved the chance to know Marcus. Even if Marcus didn't deserve Elijah. That night, after I put Elijah to bed, I called Tasha. Marcus's mom called, I said. He wants to see Elijah. Absolutely not. That's what I said. But she said Elijah deserves to know his father. Elijah deserves a father who didn't abandon him. That's not Marcus. But what if I'm making this decision based on my anger instead of what's best for Elijah? Tasha was quiet for a moment. What does your gut say? My gut says Marcus will disappoint him. That he'll show up for a while and then leave again when it gets hard. And I can't watch Elijah go through that. Then trust your gut. You've earned the right to protect your son. We talked for another hour. She reminded me of how far I'd come. How strong I'd been. How I didn't owe Marcus anything. But after we hung up, the doubt lingered. The next few days were hard. I threw myself into work and school and Elijah. Tried not to think about Marcus. Tried not to imagine what would happen if I said yes. But then, on Saturday morning, I was at the park with Elijah. He was on the swings, laughing as I pushed him higher and higher. More, Mama. More. I was smiling, caught up in his joy, when I saw someone watching us from across the playground. Marcus. He was standing by the parking lot. Hands in his pockets. Just watching. My body went rigid. Elijah noticed immediately. Mama. Push more. 1 second, baby. I walked toward Marcus. My heart was pounding. My hands were clenched into fists. What are you doing here? I demanded. I wanted to see him, Marcus said quietly. My mom said you wouldn't let me. So you what? Followed us. Stalked us. I'm not stalking you. I needed to see him, Lila. Please. He looked different. Older. Tired. His eyes were red, like he hadn't been sleeping. You had a year and a half to see him, I said. You chose not to. I was scared. I was stupid. I made the worst mistake of my life. And now you want me to what? Welcome you back with open arms. Pretend nothing happened. No, I know it's not that simple. I just want a chance to know my son. Elijah called out from the swings. Mama, come back. Marcus's eyes went to him, really looked at him for the first time. And I saw something break in his face. He's so big, Marcus whispered. You missed him growing. That was your choice. I know. God, Lila, I know. I was a coward. I ran when I should have stayed. I let you down. I let him down. Tears were streaming down his face now. Real tears. Ugly crying. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt nothing. I'm in therapy, he said. I've been going for 6 months. Working through my issues with commitment and fear and all the shit from my childhood. I'm not the same person who left. That's great. But it doesn't erase what you did. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for a chance. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. I haven't earned that. But let me try. Let me prove I've changed. For him. I looked back at Elijah. He was still swinging, oblivious to the conversation happening 20 feet away. If I let you meet him, I said slowly, and you hurt him, if you come into his life and then disappear again, I will make sure you never get another chance. Do you understand? Yes. I mean it, Marcus. 1 shot. That's it. 1 shot. I won't waste it. I didn't believe him. But I wanted to. God help me, I wanted to believe people could change. Saturday afternoons, I said. 1 hour. Supervised. The park or somewhere public. No promises beyond that. Thank you. Thank you, Lila. I turned away from him and walked back to Elijah. My legs were shaking. My mind was screaming that I'd just made a terrible mistake. But I'd done it. I'd given Marcus a chance. Whether he'd take it or waste it remained to be seen. That night, after Elijah was asleep, I sat on my couch with a glass of wine and stared at the wall. My phone was on the coffee table. Silent. And then it rang. Unknown number. Hello, Ms. Henderson. This is David Chen from State University's Department of Early Childhood Education. My stomach dropped. Had I forgotten an assignment? Missed a deadline? Yes, this is she. I'm calling because one of your professors, Dr. Williams, forwarded me your final project from last semester. The proposal for an affordable community preschool with a sliding scale payment system. Oh, yes. It's exceptional work. Thoughtful. Well-researched. Most importantly, it addresses a real need in underserved communities. Thank you. I'm calling because our department recently received a grant to fund student-led community initiatives. We're looking for projects to invest in. Yours stood out. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what he was saying. I don't understand. We'd like to offer you a $10,000 grant to develop your project further. The funding would cover the initial planning phase, curriculum development, community needs assessment, facility research. If that phase is successful, there would be additional funding to help you launch. $10,000. To build my dream. The dream I'd had since I was 21 years old, sitting in that turquoise apartment, believing I could change lives. Are you serious? He laughed. Very serious. There are conditions, of course. You'd need to present progress reports each semester. Work with a faculty advisor. But Ms. Henderson, your application essay mentioned being a single mother who'd overcome significant obstacles to complete your education. That kind of resilience, combined with your vision, that's exactly what we want to invest in. I was crying. Silent tears streaming down my face. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll take this opportunity and run with it. Yes. God, yes. Thank you. We talked for another 20 minutes about next steps, paperwork, timeline, expectations. I barely heard half of it. My mind was spinning. When I hung up, I just sat there in shock. Everything I'd lost, everything I'd fought for, everything I'd survived. It hadn't been for nothing. The universe, God, karma, whatever you wanted to call it, was giving me a second chance. Not just to rebuild my life, but to build something bigger. Something meaningful. Called my mother first. Then Tasha. Then Monica from Fresh Start, who'd taken a chance on me when no one else would. They all cried. All celebrated. All reminded me that I'd earned this. You didn't give up, my mother said. Even when you had every reason to. You kept going. And now look at you. That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled out a notebook and started planning. Sketching out ideas for the preschool. The curriculum. The space. The mission statement. Every child deserves to feel seen. That's what I told Tasha years ago. That's what I still believed. This preschool would be that place. For kids whose parents worked 3 jobs. For kids in foster care. For kids who fell through the cracks of traditional education. For kids like Elijah, whose circumstances at birth didn't determine their worth. I worked until 3 a.m. Filled 20 pages with notes. Ideas. Dreams that felt possible now. The next morning, Saturday, was Marcus's first supervised visit with Elijah. I chosen a park near my apartment. Public. Easy to leave if things went wrong. I dressed Elijah in his favorite shirt, the one with a dinosaur on it. Packed snacks in his sippy cup. Tried to calm my nerves. We're going to see someone today, I told him in the car. A man named Marcus. Marcus. He tested the word. It meant nothing to him. He's your daddy. Elijah looked at me with those big curious eyes. Daddy. He'd heard that word. Other kids at daycare talked about their daddies. But it had always been an abstract concept. Not something that belonged to him. Yes. He wants to meet you. Okay, Mama. So trusting. So innocent. My chest ached. Marcus was already there when we arrived. Sitting on a bench. Looking nervous. When he saw us approaching, he stood up. His hands were shaking. Hi, he said. Hi. We stood there awkwardly. Elijah clung to my leg, suddenly shy. Elijah, I said gently. This is Marcus. Marcus crouched down to Elijah's level. Hey, buddy. I'm your dad. Elijah buried his face in my leg. It's okay, I said. Take your time. Marcus pulled out a small toy truck from his pocket. I brought this for you. Do you like trucks? Elijah peeked out. Saw the truck. His eyes lit up. Truck. He reached for it. Marcus handed it to him with a shaky smile. It was mine when I was little. My dad gave it to me. Elijah took the truck and immediately started rolling it on the ground, making engine noises. Marcus watched him with an expression I couldn't read. Wonder, regret, love, pain. All of it mixed together. Can I play with you? Marcus asked. Elijah looked at me. He nodded. Okay, Elijah said. They sat in the grass together. Marcus rolled the truck. Elijah laughed. They built a little road with sticks. Crashed the truck into a pile of leaves. I sat on the bench, watching. My emotions were a tangled mess. Anger that Marcus got to experience this after missing so much. Relief that Elijah seemed comfortable. Fear that this wouldn't last. Hope that maybe, somehow, it would. After 45 minutes, Elijah started to get fussy. Tired. Ready for his nap. I think we need to go, I said. Marcus nodded. Okay. Can I see him again next week? I looked at Elijah. He was rubbing his eyes with the truck still clutched in his hand. Same time. Same place. Thank you, Lila. Really. As I was buckling Elijah into his car seat, Marcus approached again. I heard something, he said quietly. From my mom. About you getting some kind of grant from the university. I stiffened. Yes. That's amazing. You deserve it. Thanks. I also wanted to tell you, I've been saving. I want to start paying child support. Officially. Through the court. I know it doesn't make up for the time I wasn't there, but how much? $300 a month to start. More once I get the promotion I'm working toward. $300 a month. Not required by law since there was no custody agreement. He was offering it voluntarily. Okay. And I'm putting money into a savings account for Elijah. For college. Or whatever he needs when he's older. I didn't know what to say. This version of Marcus, responsible, remorseful, trying, was so different from the man who'd walked out. Actions matter more than words, I said finally. Show up. Be consistent. That's what he needs. I will. I promise. Over the next 3 months, Marcus showed up. Every Saturday. 1 hour. Sometimes longer if Elijah was having fun. He brought books. He learned Elijah's favorite songs. His favorite games. His little quirks and preferences. And Elijah started to warm up to him. Started calling him Dada instead of Marcus. Started asking during the week when he'd see him again. Hurt. Watching them bond. Watching Elijah give Marcus love he hadn't earned. But it also healed something I didn't know was broken. Elijah was happy. That was what mattered. The child support checks came every month. Time. Never late. Marcus got his promotion. Increased the payments to $500. He started asking if he could take Elijah for a few hours unsupervised. To his apartment. To his mother's house. Said no. Not yet. You've been showing up for 3 months, I told him. That's good. But Elijah needs to know you're not going to disappear again. Give it time. Marcus didn't argue, just nodded and kept showing up. Meanwhile, my life was transforming. The grant project was moving forward. I'd found a potential space for the preschool. An old church building the community was willing to lease affordably. I was working with an architect student to design the classrooms. Recruiting volunteers. Building partnerships with local organizations. I'd been featured in the university newsletter as a student to watch. A local news station did a story about my project. Single mother turns trauma into community resource. People started recognizing me, offering help, donating supplies, volunteering their time. The preschool was becoming real. One evening, 6 months after Marcus came back into our lives, he showed up at one of my community planning meetings. What are you doing here? He asked. I want to help. I'm a contractor, remember? I could help with the renovations. For free. I stared at him. Why? Because it's a good thing you're doing. And because I want to be someone Elijah is proud of. Not just a dad who shows up on Saturdays. Someone who contributes. I didn't trust it. Not completely. But I also needed help. Okay. But you work with the team. You don't get special treatment. Fair enough. He showed up to every workday. Painted walls. Fixed plumbing. Installed shelves. Worked harder than anyone. The other volunteers loved him. Had no idea about our history. Just saw a guy helping build something beautiful. One day, we were alone in what would become the infant room. Painting the walls a soft yellow. I'm sorry, Marcus said suddenly. You've said that. I know. But I need you to really hear it. What I did to you was unforgivable. Walking out when you needed me most. Leaving you to struggle alone. There's no excuse for that. I set down my paintbrush. Looked at him. You're right. There isn't. I was broken, Lila. My own dad left when I was 10. I swore I'd never do that. And then when Elijah was born, all I could feel was panic. Like history was repeating itself. Like I was doomed to fail. So you proved yourself right by failing. Yeah, I did. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Good, I said. You should. He nodded. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know. What you built by yourself with no help, it's incredible. You're incredible. Elijah is lucky to have you. Those words. Coming from him. The person who'd made me feel worthless. They meant something. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. But acknowledgement. Validation. He's lucky to have us, I corrected. Now that you're actually showing up. Marcus smiled. Sad but genuine. Yeah, he is. The preschool opened 8 months later. 12 spots. Sliding scale tuition. Priority for families in crisis. Opening day, Elijah cut the ribbon with plastic scissors. Marcus took photos. My mother cried. Tasha flew in from medical school to be there. My professors came. The families I'd be serving. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't about proving Marcus wrong or showing the world I didn't need anyone. It was justice. Quiet kind. The kind where you survive and then you thrive and then you build something that helps others survive too. That night, tucking Elijah into bed, he said something that stopped my heart. Mama. Yes, baby. I love you. 3 words. His first real sentence of pure emotion. I love you too, I whispered. So much. He fell asleep smiling. And I realized, this was it. This was what I needed. Not Marcus's apology. Not recognition. Not vindication. Just my son's voice, speaking love into the darkness. Everything else was just noise. 2 years after Marcus came back into our lives, I found myself sitting in a coffee shop. The same coffee shop where I'd spilled latte on his laptop all those years ago. It was strange being here. Full circle in a way I hadn't expected. Elijah was with Marcus for the afternoon. Their first unsupervised visit that lasted more than 2 hours. Marcus was taking him to the aquarium. Elijah had been talking about it all week. Finally said yes. After 2 years of consistency. 2 years of showing up. 2 years of proving he'd changed. I trusted him now. Not completely. Not the way I'd trusted him before. But enough. And sitting there alone with a latte and a quiet afternoon stretching ahead of me, I realized something. I'd forgiven him. Not the dramatic kind of forgiveness you see in movies. Not the tearful embrace where everything is forgotten. But the quiet kind. The kind where the anger finally burns out and all that's left is understanding. Marcus had been broken when he left. That didn't excuse what he did. But it explained it. He'd been repeating a pattern he'd learned from his own father. Running from fear instead of facing it. And it had taken losing everything, losing us, for him to finally break that pattern. Pulled out my journal. The one I'd been keeping since that dark night when I'd almost given up. Pages and pages of pain and hope and transformation. I flipped to a blank page and started writing. Things I've learned about forgiveness. The pen moved almost automatically. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about you. It's about releasing the weight you've been carrying so you can move forward. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means accepting what happened and choosing not to let it define you anymore. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the hardest kind of strength. It takes courage to look at someone who hurt you and say, I release you from my anger. Forgiveness isn't one moment. It's 1,000 small choices. To not bring up old wounds. To not use past mistakes as weapons. To see the person they're becoming instead of only who they were. I'd spent so much time being angry. Rightfully angry. That anger had fueled me through the darkest days. Had kept me moving when I wanted to collapse. But I didn't need it anymore. The anger had served its purpose. Now it was just baggage. I thought about the girl I'd been when I met Marcus. 51. Eve. Believing love could conquer anything. She'd been wrong. Love couldn't conquer fear or immaturity or unhealed trauma. But she'd also been right about something. Love was powerful. Just not in the way she thought. The love I had for Elijah, that fierce, unconditional, all-consuming love, had saved me. Had given me a reason to keep fighting when I had nothing else. And maybe that was the real lesson. Not that romantic love would save you. But that the capacity to love, deeply, selflessly, without condition, was the strongest force in the world. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. He loves the jellyfish. Won't stop talking about them. Sending you a video. The video showed Elijah with his face pressed against the aquarium glass, watching jellyfish float by. His eyes were wide with wonder. "Mama would love this," I heard him say in the video. My heart swelled. Marcus had remembered to include me, to make me part of the moment even though I wasn't there. That was growth. That was change. I texted back. He looks so happy. "Thank you for this." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Thank you for giving me the chance." I put my phone down and looked out the window. People were walking by, living their lives, carrying their own struggles and triumphs. How many of them were in the middle of their own transformation? How many were at rock bottom, wondering if they'd ever climb back up? How many had already climbed and were now looking back, amazed at how far they'd come? We were all just doing the best we could with what we'd been given. Marcus had done his best and it hadn't been enough. Then he'd learned to do better. I'd done my best and it had been just barely enough. Then I'd learned to do more. Elijah would do his best someday. And he'd fail at things. And he'd have to learn and grow and become someone new. That was life. Not a straight line from suffering to salvation, but a spiral, coming back to the same lessons again and again, each time from a different angle, each time understanding them a little more deeply. I thought about all the people who'd helped me. Monica from Fresh Start, Jennifer from Little Wonders, Usha, my mother, the woman at the food bank who'd given me formula, Mr. Martinez who'd given me extra time on rent. I'd been so focused on surviving that I hadn't fully appreciated how many hands had reached out to catch me. No one truly makes it alone. That was another lesson. The American myth of the self-made person was a lie. We were all made by each other, by the kindness of strangers, by the mercy of people who owed us nothing. And now I was on the other side, running a preschool that served families like mine, giving other struggling parents the help I'd received, passing it forward. That's what breaking cycles looked like. Not just stopping the bad patterns, but starting good ones, creating ripples that would reach people you'd never meet. The kids in my preschool would grow up. Some would struggle, some would thrive, but they'd all carry the memory of a place where they'd been seen and loved and given a chance. Just like Elijah would carry the memory of a mother who never gave up on him, and a father who came back and stayed. We were writing stories that would echo through generations. I finished my latte and pulled out my laptop. I was working on a presentation for a non-profit conference. They'd asked me to speak about resilience and single parenthood. I'd been nervous about it. Public speaking wasn't my strength. And talking about the darkest moments of my life to a room full of strangers felt vulnerable in a way I wasn't sure I could handle. But maybe that was the point. Maybe vulnerability was how we connected. How we reminded each other that we weren't alone. I opened the document and started revising. My son's first words weren't "Mama" or "Dada." They were, "I love you." He said them when he was 2.5 years old. Long after most kids start talking. Long after I'd worried something might be wrong. But when he finally spoke those words, I understood something. He'd been listening the whole time, absorbing everything. And what he'd heard over and over was love. Despite the chaos, despite the struggle, despite everything we'd been through. That's what I want to talk to you about today. Not about how to survive crisis, but about what we teach our children when we think they're not paying attention. Kept writing. The words flowed easier now. Like I'd finally found the narrative thread that made sense of everything. The presentation became less about me and more about the universal truth underneath my specific story. We're stronger than we think. We're never as alone as we feel. And the darkest moments often contain the seeds of our greatest transformation. 3 hours later, Marcus brought Elijah home. Elijah ran into my arms, chattering excitedly about jellyfish and sharks and penguins. Marcus stood in the doorway, smiling. He had a great time. "Thank you for taking him. Are you doing okay?" Marcus asked. "You seem different." "Different how?" "Lighter. More at peace." "Thought about that. Maybe I am." "That's good. You deserve peace." After he left, I gave Elijah a bath and put him in his pajamas. We read 3 books. He fell asleep in the middle of the 4th one. his head on my shoulder. I carried him to his bed, tucked him in, watched him sleep for a moment. This boy, this beautiful, perfect boy, he was the reason for everything, the motivation behind every choice, the light that had guided me through the darkness. He'd never fully understand what we'd been through, how close we'd come to losing everything, how hard I'd fought to give him a stable life. And that was okay. That was how it should be. Children shouldn't carry their parents' trauma. They should be free to write their own stories, make their own mistakes, find their own way. My job was to give him the foundation, tools, the unwavering knowledge that he was loved. The rest was up to him. I walked to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, picked up the journal again. On the last page I wrote one final lesson. The person who hurt you the most can teach you the most important lessons, not because they were right, but because surviving them made you discover who you really are. Marcus hadn't made me strong. I'd been strong all along, but I hadn't known it until I had to prove it. The abandonment hadn't made me capable. I'd been capable all along, but I hadn't known it until I had no other choice. The struggle hadn't made me worthy. I'd been worthy all along, but I hadn't known it until I fought for my own worth. Everything I thought Marcus had taken from me, my future, my security, my dreams, I'd taken back, built back, created from nothing. And in the process, I'd become someone I actually liked, someone I respected, someone I was proud to be. That was the real revenge. Not making Marcus suffer, but becoming the kind of person who didn't need revenge, who could look at the past with compassion instead of bitterness. I closed the journal and put it in my nightstand drawer. Tomorrow I'd wake up early, go to the preschool, welcome 12 families who were struggling just like I'd struggled, give them a safe place for their children, give them a few hours to breathe. Next week I'd present at the conference, share my story, hope it helped someone who needed to hear it. Next month I'd finish my bachelor's degree, start planning for my master's program, keep building toward that bigger vision. And through it all, Elijah would grow, learn, become his own person. Life would continue. Not perfect, not easy, but good, rich, meaningful. I turned off the light and lay down in the darkness. And for the first time in years, I fell asleep without any fear of what tomorrow might bring. 5 years later, Elijah was 7 years old now, second grade, reading above his level, obsessed with dinosaurs and space and asking questions I had to Google to answer. We'd moved out of Fresh Start housing 2 years ago, into a small house with a backyard. Nothing fancy, but ours. A place with a swing set and a garden where we grew tomatoes that never quite ripened right, but we ate them anyway. I'd finished my master's degree. The preschool had expanded to 30 children with a waiting list. I'd been invited to consult with other communities starting similar programs. The girl who'd once stood in line at a food bank was now teaching others how to build sustainable support systems. Life was good. Really, truly good. Marcus was still in our lives. Elijah spent every other weekend with him. They had their own relationship now, their own inside jokes and traditions. Marcus had gotten married last year to a kind woman named Sarah, who treated Elijah like he was her own. I'd gone to the wedding, smiled genuinely, hugged them both and meant it. Because I'd learned something that took years to understand. There was room for all of us in Elijah's life. His story didn't have to be about broken families and absent fathers. It could be about people who made mistakes and learned and grew and built something new from the pieces. But this story, my story, doesn't start 5 years later. Starts with 3 words. I love you. Those weren't actually Elijah's first words. His first word was mama. Then no. Then more. But when he was 2.5, sitting in my lap in our little apartment at Fresh Start, exhausted from a long day at the preschool, I'd been reading him his favorite bedtime story for the 100th time. He'd stopped me mid-page, put his small hand on my cheek, looked at me with those serious eyes, and said, I love you, Mama. Complete sentence. Perfect clarity. Unprompted. I'd burst into tears right there. Held him so tight he squirmed. I love you too, baby. So much. Those words had broken something open in me. Because I'd spent 2.5 years giving everything I had to keep him safe and fed and loved. And I'd wondered constantly if it was enough. If I was enough. But in that moment, hearing him speak love back to me, I understood. It had always been enough. I had always been enough. The love between us, pure and unconditional and unbreakable, that was the foundation everything else was built on. Marcus had taken almost everything when he left. Money, security, the future I'd imagined, my sense of self-worth. But he couldn't take my ability to love my son. And that ability, it turned out, was the only thing I really needed. Everything else, the housing, the education, the career, the healing, all of it grew from that one seed. The choice to keep loving even when everything else was falling apart. Now, sitting in my office at the preschool, I pulled out that old journal. The one I'd kept during the darkest days. I hadn't looked at it in over a year. I flipped through the pages. The desperation, the fear, the anger, the small victories, the slow climb back to myself. It read like someone else's story now. Like I was reading about a different person. But she wasn't a different person. She was me. Just an earlier version. The version who had to learn the lessons the hard way so this version could teach them to others. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. Ms. Henderson, do you have a minute? It was one of the mothers from the preschool. Carmen, single mom, 2 kids, working 3 jobs, barely holding on. I'd been her once. Of course. Come in. She sat down, nervous. I don't know if I can keep doing this. My rent went up. I'm short $200 this month. I don't know where to get it. And my babysitter quit, so I might lose my night job and... She was spiraling. Could see it. The panic in her eyes. The way her hands shook. I remembered that feeling. That suffocating sense that the walls were closing in. Breathe, I said gently. Just breathe for a second. She took a shaky breath. I have a fund, I told her. A small emergency fund for families in crisis. I can give you $300 to cover rent and give you a buffer. No strings. You don't have to pay it back. Her eyes filled with tears. I can't take your money. It's not my money. It's funding specifically for this. For moments like this. Why? Why would you help me? Because someone helped me once. When I had nothing. And I promised myself that if I ever got to a place where I could help someone else, I would. She cried. Let her. Handed her tissues. Reminded her that this wasn't the end. Just a hard moment in a long story. After she left, I sat back in my chair and thought about all the Carmens out there. All the women barely holding on. Doing their best. Loving their kids fiercely while the world tells them they're failing. I wanted to tell every single one of them, you're not failing. You're fighting. And fighting is the opposite of failing. That night, tucking Elijah into bed, he asked me a question. Mama, were you scared when I was a baby? Why do you ask? We learned about families in school today. And some kids have one parent and some have 2. And I was thinking about how it was just us for a long time. I chose my words carefully. Yes, I was scared sometimes. Being a parent is scary. You love someone so much and you want to protect them from everything. But you can't. So you do your best and hope it's enough. Was I hard to take care of? No, baby. You were perfect. You were the reason I kept going when things were hard. He thought about that. I'm glad you kept going. Me too. He hugged me tight. I love you, Mama. I love you too. 5 years since he'd first said those words. And they still hit the same. Still filled me with gratitude so deep it ached. After he fell asleep, I walked to my room and sat at my desk. Opened my laptop. I'd been asked to write an article for a parenting magazine. What I wish I'd known as a single mother. I stared at the blank screen for a moment, then started typing. I wish I'd known that rock bottom isn't the end. It's the beginning. It's the place where you finally stop pretending and start building something real. I wish I'd known that asking for help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. No one survives alone. We're all holding each other up. I wish I'd known that my worth wasn't determined by who stayed or who left. It was determined by how I showed up for myself and my child every single day. I wish I'd known that forgiveness isn't about the other person deserving it. It's about you deserving peace. I wish I'd known that the darkest moments would become the stories that helped others through their own darkness. But most of all, I wish I'd known that I was stronger than I thought, braver than I felt, capable of more than I imagined. Because I was. And so are you. I finished the article and sent it off. Then I pulled out my phone and scrolled through photos of Elijah. Hundreds of them. Moments captured over 7 years. His first smile. First steps. First day of preschool. First lost tooth. First time riding a bike. Whole life. Built from nothing. Built from love. Marcus appeared in some of the later photos. Playing at the park. Helping with homework. Standing next to me at Elijah's birthday party. Both of us smiling at our son. We weren't together. We'd never be together. But we'd learn to be something better than a couple. We'd become co-parents. Partners in raising a child we both loved. That was its own kind of miracle. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Ms. Henderson. This is Carmen. I just wanted to say thank you again. Not just for the money. For reminding me that I'm not alone. For giving me hope that things can get better. You saved me today. I won't forget it. I read the message 3 times. Saved her. Such heavy words. But I understood them. 'Cause Monica had saved me. And Tasha had saved me. And that stranger at the food bank had saved me. We saved each other. That's how this worked. That's how we all survived. I typed back. You're not alone. You're gonna be okay. And someday when you're on the other side, you'll help someone else. That's how we change the world. One person at a time. I put my phone down and looked around my room. At the diplomas on the wall. The photos of Elijah. The books on the shelf. The life I'd built from scratch. He took everything when he left. But my son's first words gave me all I needed to start again. Not his first word. His first expression of love. Because that's what I'd needed. Not money or security or a partner. Just the reminder that I was loved. That I mattered. That the fight was worth it. And now, years later, I could see the full picture. The abandonment had felt like an ending. But it was really a beginning. The beginning of me discovering who I really was underneath all the fear and self-doubt. The struggle had felt like punishment. But it was really preparation. Preparation for the life I was meant to live. The work I was meant to do. The pain had felt meaningless. But it was really the most meaningful thing that ever happened to me. 'Cause it taught me empathy. Resilience. The kind of strength that can only come from surviving what you thought would destroy you. I walked to Elijah's room one more time. Stood in the doorway watching him sleep. This boy. This beautiful, perfect boy. He had no idea that he'd saved my life. Someday I'd tell him. When he was older. When he could understand. I'd tell him that his existence gave me purpose when I had none. That his love gave me strength when I had none. That his smile gave me hope when I had none. I'd tell him that he was the reason I never gave up. Even when giving up would have been easier. And maybe that knowledge would help him someday. When he faced his own struggles. His own moments of doubt. He'd remember that he came from a mother who refused to break. And he'd know that he carried that same strength in his blood. We pass on more than just genetics. We pass on stories, lessons, the evidence that survival is possible. I closed his door quietly and walked back to my room. Tomorrow I'd wake up early, make Elijah breakfast, drive him to school, go to work, love the children who needed loving, help the parents who needed help, build something that mattered. The same as yesterday, the same as tomorrow, the same as every day. Simple life, good life, a life I'd earned. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to start over from nothing? Have you ever felt like the person who hurt you took everything? Have you ever wondered if you were strong enough to rebuild? You are. I don't know your story, but I know you're here, reading this, which means you're still fighting, still hoping, still believing that tomorrow might be better than today. And that belief, fragile as it feels, is the beginning of everything. Don't give up. Not on yourself, not on your story, not on the possibility that the worst chapter of your life might become the foundation for the best one. Share this if it touched you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because we're all just trying to find our way through the darkness. And sometimes knowing someone else made it through is enough to keep us going. You're not alone. You're stronger than you know. And your story isn't over yet.